Captain Elias Marlowe leaned back in his command chair aboard the SS Horizon, staring at the swirling blue planet displayed on the holoscreen. Earth loomed large, its beauty contrasted sharply with the squabbles in the surrounding void. He could almost hear the echoes of the past months, the clashes, the chaos, and the call for revenge. "Captain," Lieutenant Rickson said, his voice crackling through the intercom, "we've intercepted another transmission from the Zalith. They're still insisting on a demand for reparations." Elias sighed. He had expected nothing less. "Send a response, Lieutenant. Something to reinforce our position but make it clear we have no intention of bowing to threats." "Yes, sir," Rickson replied, his fingers racing over the console. "But if they keep this up, we might have to prepare for another offensive." "Prepare? You mean plunge us deeper into this quagmire?" Elias shot back, his frustration boiling beneath the surface. Every battle leaves both sides with losses. Before he could continue, the screen displayed Commander Alara, the fierce leader of the Zalith, her reptilian eyes cold and calculating. "Captain Marlowe," she hissed, her voice smooth but laced with menace, "your refusal to consider our terms is noted. Consequences will follow." Elias straightened, knowing the stakes. "Commander Alara," he replied evenly, "humanity desires peace, not surrender. Surely we can find a different way to address our grievances. We do not negotiate with aggressors. You will regret your arrogance." The screen went dark, leaving Elias staring at shadows. "Great, just great," Rickson muttered, rolling his eyes. "Here we go again. They won't stop until they see blood." "Their methods are part of an outdated code," Elias said, leaning forward, recognizing that could be the difference between continued war and something that resembles peace. The ship hummed in agreement as engineers and other crew members moved about their tasks. It was a reminder that behind every decision made in the captain's quarters lay the lives of those intertwined with war. "Captain," a voice chimed in from the deck. It was First Officer Reynolds. "There's been an increase in activity near the Outer Rim. Zalith warships are gathering." "Wonderful. Their response to our peace overtures," Elias muttered under his breath, his mind racing for options. "What should we do?" Reynolds asked, concern etched on his face. "Friction among our fleets is not our goal," Elias replied, his voice firm. "Redirect our patrols away from them. I don't want any misunderstandings escalating the situation." "But they might see that as a retreat," Reynolds cautioned. Elias turned, his blue eyes narrowing. "Then we must hope they understand that we mean them no harm. No more bloodshed. No more losses." As he spoke, Elias couldn't shake off the intangible weight pressing down on him. How was it that both species had come to this point? If only they could share their history of struggle, realization would surely follow. "Let's gather the senior staff for a strategy session," he instructed, feeling the urgency in his gut. "We need fresh perspectives to navigate this." Minutes later, Elias found himself surrounded by his officers in the ship's briefing room. The holographic projector glimmered, showcasing the current positions of the Zalith fleet. "All right, everyone," he began. "We can't let this grow into full-blown conflict. What resources do we have to defuse this situation?" "Well," Rickson offered, idly shifting from one foot to the other, "we could consider sending a diplomatic envoy. Create a channel for open discussions." "Our last envoy didn't come back," Lieutenant Marcus observed. Known for his dry humor, his expression remained grim. "How do you propose we send them a peaceful message when our previous attempts have been nullified by warships?" Elias met Marcus' eyes. "By taking a different approach. Instead of sending a single person, we could organize a joint delegation." "Joint? With Zalith?" Alia, a strategist with a penchant for unconventional thinking, interjected. "You mean working together? That's either genius or madness." "The idea is to showcase cooperation," Elias explained. "If we reduce the barriers between us, it might start a dialogue that can be built on. Words have power. Power to sway opinion or incite violence," Reynolds said carefully, gauging the room's mood. "Both sides need trust, Captain." Suddenly, the room fell silent as the gravity of their situation lingered. Several pairs of eyes glanced around, searching for someone to voice concerns. Elias nodded, understanding their fears all too well. "I know that the Zalith are fierce. But think about the lives that could change if we had allies instead of enemies. Has it not been enough?" Rickson shifted uncomfortably. "If we're wrong and they see this as a weakness, we'll be cutting our own throats." Elias turned resolutely toward him. "But what if we're right and it leads to something beyond this endless cycle? We must at least try. Do you want to live with the weight of failure on your conscience?" The room remained quiet, grappling with doubt yet drawn to the possibilities. At last, Reynolds spoke. "If it fails, we need to be prepared for their response." "But I agree, we must try." "Agreed," Alia said, crossing her arms. "Let's craft a proposition that expresses our intentions and demonstrate our commitment." We may just tip the scales. Elias couldn't help but feel a glimmer of hope rising within him. Let's do this then. Forge a message that embraces our willingness to stand down. We must present the idea of respect and collaboration between our civilizations. As they hashed out the details, Elias wondered about the Zalith. Were they really the monsters they painted them to be? Or had misunderstanding clouded their judgment? Days turned into hours, and as the plan took shape, the tension still clawed at him. He understood all too well that forging peace was a complicated game, and deception lingered in shadows. Captain, Rickson interrupted his thoughts. The Zalith have responded. Elias' heart raced. What does it say? Rather than outright rejection, they've agreed to a meeting, but it's in a neutral territory, Rickson said, excitement drifting through his tone. Elias nodded slowly, letting the information wash over him. We prepare then. This is our chance to change the tides. As they prepared for the journey ahead, Elias felt the weight of responsibility settling onto his shoulders. Change was possible, but it would certainly come at a price. Let's move quickly, he commanded, determined. We're not going to miss this opportunity. With renewed purpose, the crew sprang into action, checking equipment and prepping the ship for an uncertain future. As Elias' pulse quickened with each beat, he couldn't help but hope for something beyond just survival, but for something extraordinary. The galaxy waited. Chapter 2, An Unexpected Ally. Elias Marlowe stood at the bridge of the SS Horizon, eyeing the coordinates displayed on the screen. The star system they were approaching was uncharted, a neutral zone according to outdated records, a place where both humans and the Zalith could meet without a looming threat. But as they drew closer, a nagging thought tugged at him. Captain, Rickson said, breaking the silence. Are you sure about this? The Zalith could see this as a trap. Elias nodded. I understand the risks, but we can't always fight. Sometimes the moment for peace lies right beneath our feet. Peace, Rickson echoed, skepticism lining his voice. Just like that. Exactly like that, Elias shot back, turning to the crew. Everyone, this may be our best shot at avoiding more bloodshed. Let's work together, no matter the challenges. Lieutenant Alia joined them, her short hair framing her face. Captain, scouting reports show minimum Zalith presence near the coordinates. We might actually have a chance to negotiate before a real issue arises. I'd prefer to negotiate without a battleground, Elias muttered, glancing back at the screen. I'm more worried about what we don't see. Think it's a trap? Reynolds asked, a furrow in his brow. If it is, we'll know it soon enough, Elias replied. But let's hope for the best. Initiate standard protocols and prepare for arrival. I want the ship ready and communications primed. As the crew busied themselves, Elias felt a pang of anxiety twist in his stomach. The stakes felt high, but he had to believe this gamble could lead to something greater. Hours ticked by until their ship glided into the quiet of the neutral zone. A small moon loomed over them, its surface shimmering under the starlight. It was peaceful, serene, yet Elias felt that calmness held an eerie quality, a moment before a storm. Captain, we've established contact, Rickson announced. Zalith delegation is preparing to dock. Good. Let's be ready, Elias said, his heart racing as anticipation washed over him. Moments later, a sleek Zalith ship emerged, moving gracefully through the dark expanse. Elias trained his focus on the vessel. It was adorned with intricate designs, a testament to the skill of its creators. He could almost sense the tension emanating from it. Looks like we'll be meeting with Commander Alara, Reynolds said, a hint of concern in his tone. Elias nodded, remembering their last confrontational exchange. Right? Let's remain cordial despite our previous encounters. This meeting holds more weight than a skirmish in space. The docking sequence engaged, the two ships connecting without a hitch. Elias felt a sense of gravity descend as he prepared himself for the encounter. I'll lead the initial discussions. Keep an eye on everything while I'm gone. I'll have your back, Captain, Rickson said, determination in his voice. With a final nod, Elias stepped into the airlock, taking a deep breath to steady his nerves. The hatch opened and he stepped onto the Zalith vessel, greeted by a vast chamber illuminated by shimmering lights. Captain Marlowe, came a smooth voice, and he turned to find Commander Alara waiting, flanked by two imposing guards. Her presence radiated poise, making the tension in the room palpable. Commander Alara, Elias said, extending his hand in greeting. I appreciate your willingness to meet. She regarded his hand for a moment before clasping it firmly. I come here cautiously. This is not the time to trust blindly. I completely understand, Elias replied, pulling back his hand. But we have to change the way we speak to one another. Fighting only leads to loss on both sides. Loss? You are speaking of compromise? Alara's expression was icy, her skepticism clear. What do you offer? Only dialogue, Elias answered. Let's not discuss surrender or consequence, but rather envision a future together, one without hostility. We share the same galaxy. Alara studied his face, her oval eyes narrowing. And why should my people believe your intentions are genuine? Because I don't want this constant state of war, Elias said, his voice steady. We haven't become monsters toward one another overnight, so let's not treat each other like we have. Before she could respond, a colorful holographic map took shape above them, displaying the territories and battle zones of their conflict. He pointed toward regions affected by skirmishes, his voice rising with passion. Look at the devastation. The loss of life, resources wasted. We cannot afford this any longer. It is your race that provoked us initially, Alara shot back, crossing her arms. What makes you think we can reach an agreement? Because I've seen my people suffer, Elias replied, engaging her directly. Just like yours. I don't want to lose any more lives. I want us to build something together, a framework for future interactions. Alara's gaze softened, but her determination remained. And what do you propose? What if we initiated a council? Elias suggested, eyes brightening. A collaborative group where humans and Zalith can engage regularly. Designate representatives from both sides. Discuss mutual concerns and interests. Trust takes time to cultivate, Alara said, her voice now thoughtful. I cannot assure my people who seek revenge. Then propose a smaller group for dialogue, somewhere neutral, Elias suggested eagerly. Let curiosity be the spark igniting a plan. Allow us to clear the air between our civilizations. Alara studied him again, weighing her options. And what will this accomplish? It could lead both groups toward a better understanding of our cultures. Better than fighting endlessly. We need to face our mutual fears. Words cannot bind an oath, Alara noted, tilting her head slightly. But I am intrigued. Perhaps we start with smaller engagements, a temporary truce. Elias nodded, feeling relief wash over him. Yes, let's agree to halt hostilities while we establish this council. I'll gather a few representatives on our end, and you can select yours. Consider it, Alara said, her voice stern yet curious. But do not underestimate my people. We will retaliate if provoked again. He held her gaze steady. I understand, and that's exactly what I'm trying to prevent. We've both seen enough destruction. Let's channel our energies toward something constructive. Very well, she replied, taking the first step back toward her ship. I will consider your proposal and return with my delegation. Trust may begin on your end first, Captain. I look forward to it, Elias said, relief permeating through him as she exited. Returning to the SS Horizon, he faced Rickson and Reynolds, who were eagerly waiting for news. How did it go? Rickson asked, tension still lingering in his voice. It went better than expected, Elias replied, a grin creeping onto his face. We've got a chance to create something worthwhile. A council to discuss our futures. Seriously? You think they'll actually agree? Reynolds remarked, surprised. If they want peace, Elias said, crossing his arms, they'll find a way, and we have to show we're willing to. Now the hard work begins. As they prepared for the next step, Elias couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. The path ahead was uncertain, but he felt a spark, a glimmer of potential in the air that hadn't been there before. And for the first time in a long while, he could envision something better than war. Chapter 3, Seeds of Change. The following days were a whirlwind as Elias prepared for the upcoming council. The atmosphere aboard the SS Horizon buzzed with a blend of anticipation and anxiety. Crew members moved about with a sense of purpose, each task loaded with the weight of significance. Captain, Rickson called as he entered the briefing room, his brow furrowed. I've reviewed the communications from the Zalith. They've confirmed that 3 delegates will be arriving tomorrow. 3? Elias echoed, a knot forming in his stomach. That's fewer than I expected. It might indicate they're still cautious, Rickson replied. Or it could be a sign they're still weighing how much we can be trusted. Elias nodded, contemplating the implications. Make sure we're ready for anything. Prepare accommodations and review every bit of intel we have on their customs. Alia entered, her expression determined. How are we coordinating our side, Captain? We can't arrive unprepared either. Good point, Elias agreed. I need volunteers who are willing to represent humanity, preferably those who understand the stakes and the intricacies of interspecies diplomacy. I can help, Rickson volunteered immediately, his tone firm. I've dealt with negotiations in the past. I was hoping you'd say that, Elias said with a hint of relief. Who else? I'll go, Alia chimed in. I've spent enough time strategizing to know how to approach this cautiously. Great, Elias said. Anyone else? Count me in, Reynolds said, stepping forward. I've seen firsthand how fragile this situation is, and I want to assist any way I can. All right, Elias said, feeling a sense of unity coalesce among them. We may not all have experience in diplomacy, but we understand the stakes. Let's work together to show them we desire peace. The next day, the ship hummed with nervous energy as they waited for the Zalith delegates to arrive. Elias stood on the bridge, watching the coordinates where the Zalith ship would emerge. The crew was tense but geared up for the challenge ahead. I'm getting reports of them entering our space, Rickson announced, his eyes glued to the monitor. Looks like they're on approach. Let's hold our positions, Elias commanded. No sudden movements. The atmosphere grew thick with anticipation as the Zalith craft docked smoothly alongside the SS Horizon. The boarding ramp extended and Elias straightened himself, mentally preparing for the moment. Remember, he told his team, this is about showing good faith, not just with words but through the actions we take. The hatch opened, revealing the Zalith delegates. Commander Alara led the way, flanked by two tall and imposing figures, one with vibrant blue scales, the other with golden-hued skin. Welcome to the SS Horizon, Elias greeted, stepping forward. I'm Captain Elias Marlowe. I hope your journey here was uneventful, Alara interjected, her gaze scanning the room. We have matters to discuss. Of course, Elias said politely. I've arranged a meeting space where we can talk freely. As they moved toward the conference room, the tension felt almost palpable. With each step, Elias prepared himself to navigate through their cautious dialogue. Seated around a wide, circular table, the crew exchanged glances while the delegates eyed the room, absorbing their surroundings. The council is meant to establish trust, Elias said, leaning forward, and to discuss a framework for ongoing communication. But first, please introduce your counterparts. This is Delegate Theric, Alara gestured to the blue-scaled figure whose eyes shimmered with intensity. He is a specialist in interspecies relations. And this is Delegate Selith, she continued, motioning toward the golden-skinned delegate. She oversees cultural exchanges within our ranks. Elias smiled. Pleasure to meet you both. We've come a long way to gather here, and I believe we can establish something meaningful together. Your efforts are noted, Captain, Theric replied, his voice smooth and thoughtful. However, trust cannot be bestowed blindly. You must earn it through actions. Agreed, Reynolds interjected, his arms crossed. What conditions do you propose? First, Selith stated, we need to understand human intentions regarding our territories. We want transparency. We're here to clarify and share our perspectives, Elias stressed. We want to find solutions, not create further conflict. We can start by addressing misconceptions on both sides. Misconceptions? Alara challenged, her gaze fixing on Elias. You believe our initial conflict was based solely on misunderstanding? Not entirely, Elias said carefully. But the end result was pain on both sides. If we don't know each other, how can we prevent more? Taking a deep breath, he shared a story about a mission gone wrong, a squadron of humans mistaking a Zalith outpost for an enemy stronghold, resulting in unintentional casualties. As he spoke, he watched their expressions shift, interest creeping. Ichor of understanding evident in her eyes. You speak of a desire for growth, Captain, Theric said slowly. But we need to know specifics. What else can you offer? Elias felt the weight of the moment. How about structured discussions moving forward? Regular assemblies where we can both present and rectify any grievances before they escalate. Let's work together on issues trade, exploration, and security. Trade? Selith asked, skepticism coloring her tone. Why would we share resources? Because cooperation can lead to prosperity for both sides, Reynolds put forth. If we can share knowledge, we can avoid conflicts over territory or resources. Alara tapped her fingers on the tabletop, contemplating. You have provided insight. However, actions also matter. We cannot simply take your word. What kind of actions do you require? Elias probed gently. A demonstration of goodwill, Alara replied, her eyes narrowing. Join us in a humanitarian mission. There are regions on my planet affected by calamities. Show us that your people will offer assistance. Rickson leaned forward. Are you suggesting we help your people? Yes, Alara affirmed. But only if you truly value cooperation. This will test your integrity. Elias glanced at his team, seeing determination mixed with apprehension. We will gladly join, provided we agree on the terms. If this is what it takes to build a bridge between our worlds, then let's define the guidelines. Then it is settled, Theric said, nodding. We will detail a plan for the relief mission. You will have a chance to prove yourselves. As the discussions unfolded further, Elias felt a sense of purpose enveloping the room. This was a milestone. As precarious as it was, he sensed the momentum shifting. Tomorrow, Elias said, standing with renewed vigor, we begin to act as allies. Let's take the first step toward a future where conflict is a distant memory. Alara gave a small, almost imperceptible nod. We shall see if your actions speak louder than your words. And with that, a new chapter began, one forged through dialogue, uncertainty, and the audacity to envision a future together. As they set plans into motion, Elias felt solidarity building, a greater force than any single entity could achieve alone, resting on the precipice of change. Chapter 4, The Fractured Coalition. The atmosphere aboard the SS Horizon crackled with a new energy as preparations for the humanitarian mission unfolded. Elias Marlowe stood on the bridge, going over the details for the upcoming operation with a sense of urgency. Captain, Rickson said, his voice rising above the hum of the ship, we've finalized the roster for the initial team. It'll consist of both human and Zalith personnel. Good. And how are the supplies looking? Elias asked, glancing at the display showing their cargo hold. We've stocked medical supplies, food rations, and tools for rebuilding, Alia chimed in. We should be ready to mobilize as soon as we reach the affected areas. Elias felt a weight settle on his shoulders. Let's ensure we do this right. I want everyone on the same page when we arrive. Just then, a soft chime filled the air, and the communications panel lit up. Captain, we're receiving a message from Commander Alara, Rickson announced. Put it through, Elias replied, ready for the next move. The screen flickered to life, revealing Alara, her features resolute. Captain Marlowe, are you prepared for our departure? Absolutely. We're just about ready to set our course, Elias said, feeling a mix of excitement and anxiety. Once we arrive, we'll go over the logistics together. Logistics will be essential, Alara agreed. Our people have been resistant to collaboration for many cycles. Your presence will help ease tensions. Trust me, we're invested in this as much as you are, Elias stated, the weight of responsibility clinging to his words. What's the current situation on the ground? We are facing widespread damage due to earthquakes recently triggered by shifting tectonic plates, Alara said, without a hint of emotion. Many Zalith families have lost their homes, and others are in dire need of medical assistance. The local governances have been overwhelmed. Elias nodded, absorbing her words. Understood. We'll do everything we can. Is there anything else we should be aware of? My people have not experienced your kind's presence outside of conflict, Alara stated, her voice growing firmer. Some are skeptical of a united effort. Trust is built slowly. We'll treat everyone with respect. I assure you, Rickson interjected. We're here to work side by side. Then we will commence our mission, Alara said. A slight curve of her lips indicated a hint of optimism. Prepare for departure. As the screen faded to black, Elias exchanged glances with his team, determination coursing through him. Let's do this, he urged, rallying everyone around the plan. Ensure everyone knows their responsibilities and keep communication open. The SS Horizon launched into the void, making its way across the stars toward the Zalith's home region. They were met with anticipation, each crew member focused on their tasks. As they approached the designated coordinates, the ship entered Zalith airspace, revealing a landscape that had once been vibrant, now marred by destruction. Dense layers of smoke and debris hung in the atmosphere, casting a dull hue over everything. Elias couldn't help but feel a pang in his heart. Prepare for descent, he commanded, steeling himself. Let's make this count after all the effort that led us here. With a gentle thud, the ship landed on what remained of a village. The scene before them was distressing. Fractured buildings scattered amid the remnants of what had once been homes. The cries of the wounded echoed in the air, and Elias felt a knot form in his stomach. Stay alert, he cautioned his team. We don't know how the local survivors will react. As they exited the ship, Zalith citizens gathered, their expressions a mixture of confusion and awe. Alara stepped forward alongside Elias, her demeanor commanding attention. People of Zalith, your allies have come to assist in recovery efforts, she declared, her voice firm. The crowd murmured, whispers of skepticism coloring the air. A few individuals stepped forward, anger glinting in their eyes. What do we need with humans? One voice shouted. You bring trouble. Elias raised his hands to calm them. We understand your hesitations. We're here to help, not to cause more pain. We are all in this together. Alara stepped closer to Elias, visibly tensing. Listen to the captain. Their intention is to help restore what has been lost. At that moment, a tall man with a ragged appearance pushed through the crowd, his eyes filled with suspicion. Aren't you just here to exploit our suffering? Why should we trust you? Elias could feel the tension in the air. I can't change the past, but I can promise you our commitment to recovery, he said. We wish to support you in any way possible. Let's work alongside each other. Support, the man spat, anger flashing across his face. Your people want something from us. It's always been this way. Don't listen to him, one of the other Zalith cried out. They might actually help us. Can't you see the chaos we're in? The crowd began to argue, raising voices, swirling confusion into the space around them. Elias, we need to get control of this situation, Rickson whispered, glancing around anxiously. You're right, Elias replied, taking a deep breath. Alara, do you have any suggestions? Perhaps we can separate them into smaller groups, she suggested. If we can engage them individually, it might convince them of our sincerity. That could work, Elias said, nodding with approval. All right, let's split into pairs. One human and one Zalith will address each group, starting a dialogue based on their needs. As they prepared for their approach, Elias felt a surge of hope and determination. He moved toward a cluster of Zalith citizens, casting first a glance back at Rickson, who stood ready at his side. Excuse me. Elias called to the group, holding up his hands. We are here to help. Can you tell us what you need most right now? A woman with a streak of golden scales stepped forward, holding a child who looked frail. We need shelter. Some gained nothing from the quakes. We are afraid. We can assist with that, I assure you, Rickson replied, stepping forward. We've brought supplies. We'll help you rebuild. The woman looked hesitant. You expect us to believe you're here out of kindness? Elias leaned in closer, his tone gentler. I know it might be hard to trust, but I've seen how vulnerable you are, and we're committed to giving aid without expecting anything in return. We're trying to change the narrative. Show us then, the woman replied, eyeing him closely. Elias turned to Rickson and nodded. Let's get started. Can you show us what you need most urgently? The woman swallowed hard, then gestured toward the debris. There are structures to be reinforced if we want to keep our families safe. Many of us lost everything. We need help to rebuild. Elias motioned toward their ship where the medical supplies and building materials lay secured. We'll begin by securing some basic shelters and providing medical aid to anyone in need. All around him, conversations swirled as individuals began to talk about their needs. Elias felt another rush of urgency. If they could bring some level of order to this chaos, it might shift perceptions. As they worked side by side with the Zalith people, Elias noticed some skepticism beginning to fade. One step at a time, they were building trust amidst the ruins. Within hours, Elias and his team were making progress. The sound of hammers echoed as Zalith and humans collaborated, building temporary shelters and treated those needing medical attention. What had begun as hostility transformed into a cautious alliance. Look at this, Rickson said, excitement creeping into his voice. We're doing it. Elias smiled, surveying the activity around him. It wasn't perfection, but they were creating something meaningful. Each repaired structure, each bandaged wound was a testament to possibility. As the sun began to set, casting warm hues over the devastation, Alara approached Elias, a hint of pride in her eyes. You were right to focus on action rather than just words. This is transformative for both of our peoples. Yes, but it's only the beginning, Elias replied, feeling the weight of their effort. We can't stop here. We need to keep this momentum and press forward. Alara nodded solemnly. The journey ahead will be as challenging as today has been. But perhaps we are heading towards something new. Elias turned to the bustling sight before them, filled with determination and newly formed bonds. In the heart of chaos, they had begun to forge an unlikely alliance. Action had carved the path, and as night fell, the flickering lights of the makeshift camp signaled a fragile promise of coalition, a chance to navigate their futures together. Chapter 5, A New Dawn. As dawn broke over the Zalith landscape, the air carried a renewed sense of purpose. The previous day's partnerships had transformed a fractured scene into a bustling hub of collaboration. Elias Marlowe stood at the entrance of the makeshift camp, observing citizens from both species working side by side. Hey, Captain. Rickson called, jogging up beside him. You have to see this. What is it? Elias inquired, turning his attention toward Rickson's enthusiasm. The group we helped yesterday are already starting to share their stories. They're even discussing how to form a permanent committee to address ongoing issues. Elias felt a spark of excitement. That's amazing. Where's this happening? Over by the supply tents, Rickson replied, leading the way. I saw Alia talking to them, trying to facilitate the conversation. As they approached, Elias could see Alia sitting cross-legged on the ground, engaging passionately with a handful of Zalith citizens, including the woman from the day before who held a small child in her arms. Everyone, this is Captain Marlowe, Alia said, gesturing for him to join. They want to present their ideas for a council. Good morning, everyone, Elias greeted, squatting down to meet their eyes. It's encouraging to see you all coming together. What do you have in mind? The woman stepped forward, her expression serious but hopeful. We think we should establish a coalition to address the aftermath of the earthquakes, but also to keep communication ongoing. There's a lot we need to discuss, and we can't afford to wait for the next disaster. Elias nodded, giving her words the weight they deserved. That's an excellent idea. Establishing a council will give both our species a platform to listen to each other regularly. Another Zalith, a burly figure with a deep voice, added, we need to ensure that our government prioritizes the needs of citizens in the future. We also want to prevent events like this from pushing us back into chaos. What would this council look like? Alia asked, her curiosity piqued. We think representatives from both sides should come together, the woman suggested. We can rotate the leadership to ensure shared governance. It must be a space where all voices are heard. Rickson exchanged glances with Elias, a grin spreading across his face. That sounds like a solid foundation. How do we start? Elias leaned in, energized by the conversation. What if we hold an initial gathering today? We could outline the objectives, the structure, and how often we'll meet. Today, the woman tilted her head, looking uncertain. Wouldn't it be too soon? We've already made progress, Elias responded, leaning in with conviction. Let's keep the momentum going. We could even document your needs and concerns so they can be prioritized immediately. Lowering her voice, she replied, all right. If you think it's the right approach, we'll trust your judgment. Then it's settled. Alia exclaimed, clearly excited. Let's organize the first council meeting right here, right now. Rickson clapped his hands together, grinning. This is going to be epic. Elias felt his heart racing. Let's spread the word. We'll gather as many people as we can. Within a short time, the message of the first council meeting reverberated through both the human and Zalith populations. Citizens from both sides began to converge on the main area, a sense of anticipation thrumming through the crowd. Captain, Alara approached, her expression serious. I see you've initiated something here. Elias straightened, a little surprised to see her. Yes. We're organizing a council to address current needs and promote ongoing communication. What assurances can you give us? Alara asked, crossing her arms. Not everyone here is convinced that a council would be beneficial. Believe me, I understand the skepticism, Elias replied. But what we need right now is a dialogue to discuss our shared challenges. This isn't just about you or me, it's about our people moving forward together. Alara studied him for a moment before nodding. Very well, I will attend and lend my support. Thank you. Your presence will add credibility to the proceedings. As the last few citizens filtered in, Elias cleared his throat, raising his voice to address the crowd. Thank you all for joining us today. We've gathered not only to address the aftermath of the earthquakes but to form a coalition that will allow us to communicate openly. The diverse crowd murmured, some exchanging skeptical glances while others leaned in with interest. Today marks a pivotal moment, Elias continued. We're not just here to rebuild structures, we're here to rebuild trust. Together, we can address the issues that face both our societies, and we can do so through a council that prioritizes everyone's needs. Who will represent us? A young Zalith shouted from near the back, her voice piercing through the gathering. Great question. Rickson chimed in. We'll discuss potential representatives today. But first, let's hear what everyone feels are the pressing issues that should be included in our agenda. A line of hands shot up, and soon members of the crowd began sharing their concerns. One Zalith spoke of food shortages, while a human discussed widespread concern about safety. Another raised issues related to resource management. Elias listened intently, recording ideas on a digital pad, while Alia helped facilitate the conversation. For every issue raised, solutions were proposed. This is a way to ensure we understand what our communities need, Alia said, smiling as she looked around. We're all part of this now. Hours passed like moments, and the sun began to dip below the horizon as progress was made. Concerns about resource allocation turned into pragmatic discussions about future needs. Given the pressing needs we face, Elias suggested it's important we choose representatives who can voice these concerns effectively. We're looking to promote collaboration among all groups. I agree, Alara added, speaking up now that discussions had settled. We must ensure the council is a reflection of our communities. But we must also instill guidelines. A council without structure can easily spiral into chaos. Good point, Elias replied. Do you think each group should nominate someone to represent their interests? That might be a solid starting point, Alara suggested. But we need to ensure those chosen are respected, informed, and capable. We could have a voting system. Rickson proposed. Different factions within the two societies could vote for their desired representatives. It would lend legitimacy to the process. That should quell some resistance, the woman from earlier nodded, her expression earnest. Our concerns have often fallen on deaf ears. With a solid plan in place, Elias could feel the atmosphere shift. They were no longer opposing forces but rather allies pooling their resources and ideas. Let's work to finalize our representatives by the end of the week, Elias proposed. We can hold another council to address specific initiatives and projects after that. As the day transitioned into night, the people began to ebb away but left behind a palpable sense of enthusiasm. Conversations sparked up everywhere as individuals debated candidates and discussed strategies. When Elias turned to Alia, he could see the joy bubbling within her. We did it. This is unbelievable. Just think what we could accomplish. She replied, her excitement contagious. We've laid the groundwork for something incredible. I know we faced resistance, Elias said, reflecting on the challenges ahead. But this is a beginning. If we can continue moving forward together, there's no telling what we can achieve. As they gathered their belongings to leave, Alara approached them. Though I initially had doubts about this mission, I must admit today was an impressive start. We couldn't have done it without your support, Elias said, smiling warmly. Let's keep the dialogue open, she replied, her tone now less confrontational. Perhaps in time, our people will find ways to collaborate that extend beyond this council. Elias nodded, feeling a sense of fulfillment rising in him. I look forward to it. The path ahead is still long, B.